So a task force was created of all the entities, including Grand Haven and Spring Lake Schools, the YMCA, NORA, 4 Points, as well as Kelly Larson, who was then president of the chamber, and Mark Kleiss, the chair of the Community Foundation. So over the past 2 years, we have worked with individuals from a variety of organizations and consultants to best see how the community desires could be achieved, and working with committees and subcommittees over many meetings over the past couple of years, we found it best for each organization to maintain its own identity while seeing what opportunities avail themselves to best support one another and work together to give Northwest Ottawa County the best rec programs available. And this wasn't always seen as a possibility. I remember somebody voicing an opinion in one of the early meetings saying, this is never going to happen. And so I'm glad we didn't listen to that voice, because it is happening. And so we're very appreciative of the very positive attitude. So the rec task force has been very successful in bringing and keeping everyone at the table to work together. We have decided to continue meeting on a quarterly basis to stay in touch, share ideas, successes, and challenges, and to see what, say, low-hanging fruit where collaboration would be the most helpful. So it's a combination of seeing how we can work together while maintaining our individual identity. So we thought at one time everything could be under one umbrella. That seemed that after many meetings and discussions, that did not seem the right way to go. But each individual group working on its own, but supporting one another, was a much better solution, and that was satisfactory to all persons involved. So the task force includes when we had our last meeting, Jason Epplett of the Spring Lake Aquatic Center, which is great to have Spring Lake joining in. Greg Coyle, a new director, relatively new director of the YMCA, and 2 other Y representatives, Rita Archer and Allison Brady. Rita is a relatively new director from 4 Points, so we kind of have, a lot of the entities had new directors coming in at the same time, which made it a little bit easier, I think, to see the vision of working together. And then Chris Van Hecken is our new NORA director. Kathy Cook, Robinson Township Supervisor, and myself represented the NORA board. And Kelly Larson and Mark Kleiss have continued to stay with the task force as well. And so these meetings, these quarterly meetings to keep in touch and stay at the table and to help support one another, I think is a big step forward in all our rec programs in the community. And Chris Van Hecken is with us this evening, and I just asked him to step up and introduce himself. Yeah, just come on up to the mic. You'll be broadcast live and all over. So just tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself. Appreciate it.
Chris Van Hecken, thank you very much, Jerry, for inviting me. I've lived originally from Holland. My wife and I moved up here about 20 years ago. We have 2 children. We have a daughter who's a junior now at Alma College, and she's part of the cheer and stunt team up there. And we have a son who is almost 16, so he's going to be driving pretty soon. So just beware of that. I'm a graduate of Aquinas College, Business Administration, and then also I do have a master's in Sports Administration and Management as well. And upon the completion of that a few years ago, this talk started to open up about a possible position at NORA, and things just kind of lined up for me in that regard. And so I started first part of May, so I'm a little over 3 months into the job now, and it's been going very well. We've got a great team there, and we had a great summer. We had record numbers at some of our programs for volleyball, and especially our recreation summer school program, and really excited about this fall and some of the new things that we got on the agenda for that. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And Chris has got some different ideas about new things bringing to NORA. They're looking at, what programs are successful, what are maybe not so successful to cycle into and out of new interests for kids. And so I think we can look at a lot of good things coming out of NORA in the near future. So we appreciate Chris and all he's doing as part of the NORA family. So appreciate it very much. Second item, if anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to field them. So, but it's been a long journey, a lot of interesting meetings, a lot of interesting people, and but I think we're we're way ahead of the game, and I think we're all on the same page, and it's very, very good to be there. So, okay, moving on, I'm going to have Pat introduce Ryan Vredeveld.
Thank you, Jerry. Just invited Ryan. He just started on Friday as our wastewater treatment plant superintendent. I think we're very fortunate to have recruited Ryan, and he's worked very hard to gradually impress all of those around him as well as his team, he's been proven to be an effective leader already there at the wastewater plant. One of those jobs that is incredibly important in a community, but carries some baggage with it, being the sewer treatment plant superintendent, and he welcomes the joking, and but all that aside, you need to be a chemist and a manager and a leader and a hard worker to ascend to this position as quickly as he did. I've been involved before, in another community in recruiting wastewater professionals to a community, and it's not the easiest thing to do. It's a fairly specialized profession, and not every community has them just growing up in the community. So we were lucky to find Ryan, who's a graduate of Grand Haven High School and Baker College, and has worked as a steel worker for a number of years before we recruited him to become an operator. And he took a real keen interest in the business and started working on his different certifications and got his D license, his C license, his B license, his A license as we were going through some transitions. John Stuparitz left. Wally Whitney came on board, stayed for a few years. Then when Wally left, we thought Ryan was ready, but he just hadn't served the requisite amount of time to write for his A license, and we need an A license. So Dave Crone agreed to stay on board while Ryan continued to learn and get the time he needed so that he could write that test. First try, passed it. Sure hope so, because that'd be embarrassing. He's just third try. But yeah, very first time he got it passed, which is quite impressive. It's not a simple thing to move through all those levels as quickly as Ryan did, but that's a testament to his intellect and his hard work. So we're very excited to have him leading our wastewater operation. The board is extremely enthusiastic about his new tenure, and as you can see, he's a younger guy, so we think he can serve for many, many years and hopefully be there, and we won't have to be recruiting any more of these anytime soon, because it is, again, a tough thing to land. So we're just lucky Ryan came our way, and I think he feels the same way about his job. I think he's pleased to be here. So that's your introduction, Ryan. Now the honeymoon is over. Could you give us an update on the sewer improvement project?
So he's promised us at least 40 years, I understand. He's got to outdo his predecessors.
Yeah, I certainly have some big shoes to fill as far as my time served, that's for sure. So we'll do the best we can, as long as the job is nice to me and likewise. So thanks, Pat, for inviting me here and be able to give you guys an update on our sewer project. Being a small community, you guys probably have a pretty good idea of, or have seen some things happen over there. So I'm just going to give you a timeline of how things have shaken out down the line. So with the sewer authority projects, it's made up of a couple different contracts. Again, sewer authority, as you know, serves Grand Haven Township, Spring Lake Township, and Ferrysburg. So everybody kind of plays a part in financial responsibilities of the plant. The biggest project, I think, because of the challenges involved with it, was the Spring Lake force main crossing. And if you're not too familiar with it, they had to directionally drill underneath the river 100 feet below the surface, and it spanned over 4,000 feet. So just going over that's the big challenge right there. And being that the Grand River had been there so many years, you couldn't say with 100% certainty that it was going to be a successful project, even though sample testing was done ahead of time to get an idea of the soil that was that the pipe was going to be going through. Didn't result in ideal situations, but it gave them encouraging data to at least move forward with. So during the project, which began in early February, they started setting up, and it took 7 weeks of site work and preparation before the actual pipe pull itself. And with the pipe pull, it's pretty intense because there's a lot of back and forth movements that are involved, and to be able to land in a projected area, a roughly 10 by 10 square foot spot of land is pretty impressive, and they were able to achieve that 2 times. And I say 2 times because the first time was successful, but in the pullback, they encountered some problems and they had to do a second bore. And after that, things went smoothly, luckily. So that way, things were successful. So we were pretty impressed just because of the time of year wasn't necessarily ideal, being coming out of winter, going into spring. Temperatures aren't really nice to PVC, which is the material that was used. But they were able to, persevere through that and do a really good job. So the total project, like I said, started in late February and finished the final phase of the construction in the first week of July. Although the actual pullback of the forest main was successfully completed April 10 at 10 p.m. at night. When they started the pullback process, they didn't want to stop because when you're working with the type of materials they were working with, any delayed time could result in suction. So whenever that happens, you might not be able to get a good pull. So they just worked continuous around the clock, and we're grateful for that because it resulted in a successful pull. So yeah, that was a good thing to see, and so there's still some parts of the project that are remaining. As you guys are aware, we've had some crazy high water levels. So a portion of Cutler Street is still underwater, and there's still some remediation that needs to be done as far as getting roadways back to normal and stuff like that. But as far as our impingement on daily life, either in Spring Lake or on the Grand Haven side, and everything's back to working order. So that was a very successful program or project that went through, and we're actually flowing through it now today. So it worked. We're grateful. And then the next is the Headworks building. Now this is where all the flow comes into the plant itself. We have 3 major pumping stations. Spring Lake has one that, as I just explained, and goes through a forest main underneath the Grand River. Grand Haven, which I'll touch upon here in a minute, is Adams Street over by Grand Landing, and we have one on local site, which is just the end of the gravity line onto our plant, but we need to push it back up so we can start it flowing through our Headworks building and then down the process line. And so with that, everybody kind of has a hand in that building there. And the reason behind that was because everybody was thinking for the future. When we're designing a plant, you're not designing it for now, you're designing it for the future. And in all reality, that ended up being a bottleneck to our flow. It was undersized with the rest of the plant. We needed to catch up. And so when they look out 20 to 30 years, they were able to say, okay, we're going to go from 5.5 million gallon design to 10, which greatly improves our capacity. So, and improvements are made in any of the communities we serve. We certainly have room for them, and we encourage it. But with that Headworks building, site work began in early March with a scheduled completion date for the entire project on June 1, 2020. So it's not just the Headworks building I'm talking about, it's also many phases down the line with our process as well, because we're making improvements to the Headworks building where all flow goes through. We're also upsizing our local pump station. So we're going from a 2-pump system to a 3-pump system, just creating that redundancy so that way in any maintenance event or plugging with personal wipes, we can still provide that reliable service without backing up and possibly filling up any basements, because nobody wants that. But the other parts of the project too is our primary clarification building where we have pipes and valves and pumps. Those are all being upgraded. And also our activated sludge building, which houses our return pumps, and those run continuously for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year round. We're upgrading the pipes, valves, and pumps in there, or pipes, valves, and pumps in there as well. And a lot of this equipment is original to the plant, so around 45 years old. They've served their time, and it's time to put them to rest and put some more energy-efficient equipment in there, and ultimately more reliable. So we're grateful for all the support that we've had pushing these projects forward to our board, and they were able to get bonds for the funding. So as you can imagine, we're the flow doesn't stop, so there's a challenge right there. Anytime you're doing equipment improvements at the site, you want to be able to provide that reliable service without disrupting it. And so we haven't gotten to that point yet because we're only on the headworks building. Some of that work's going to start filing into the other parts of the process that I described. In the coming weeks, actually, they'll start doing that work. But that will be the challenge. Anytime you're taking pumps out, you're sacrificing that, either that redundancy or the efficiency, because flow doesn't stop, and we need to keep doing it. Essentially we use wastewater to treat wastewater. So if we're going to take a return pump out of the line, then we could possibly ruin our treatment. Being a biological plant, we rely on our equipment to help us provide an environment for efficient treatment. So that's the challenge right there, but we have great faith in Pioneer Neuhoff, an engineering firm, in cooperation with us. We explained our concerns, and we worked through all scenarios to be able to provide an outline for our construction crews to be able to keep us in service while also switching out to new things. So that, for the most part, is what's going to happen at the headworks and its wastewater treatment plant. But one of the other parts of the project, which affects you guys, is the Adams Street pump station. And with that pump station, the construction actually started today. With that process, a lot of things need to be done ahead of time. And we were very adamant that we needed all construction material on site before construction was to take place, just because of the importance of that plant. Just like our treatment facility, that pump station flow doesn't stop coming. So as that flow comes in, we need to make sure that we're moving it out. Just because, like I said, if it stops moving, we could be filling basements, and that's the last thing we want to do. So we want to keep that moving along. So the things that need to be done ahead of time are bypass pumps. They're being set up. Like what we're doing at the pump station, we want to create redundancy there for any event that might happen. So we're going to have 3 bypass pumps laid out on the site there. It's a relatively small site, so everything's going to look kind of jam-packed if you happen to drop in and give it a look. But 3 pipes on site, 3 pumps on site with pipes all going into a wet well. We're actually going to plug flow going into the building just because of the type of work we need to do inside. So those pumps will be continuously running. Just as the pump station would, and we'll be starting those pumps up August 26th, and then the official offline date will be August 28th of the pump station. So as that flow stops, work begins right away, and with that pump station, we're basically starting fresh. So new pumps, new valves, new electrical work, and alike with the local pump station, we're also going from a 2-pump station to a 3-pump, so a triplex. Which will create more redundancy and better service for the community. So by the time we start construction the 26th, the anticipated finish date will be 30 days thereafter. So a relatively quick turnaround, which we're hoping no surprises come with this project, and we're hoping that no news is good news, because as I was telling Mike earlier, a quiet day is a good day for us. And that's kind of how we want to go about this project, is that no surprises come up and it's just business as usual. So for the most part, that's all the information update I got for you guys at this moment. But if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you. But before you do, I'd like to extend an offer to you guys that you're welcome to drop by anytime. I'd be happy to give you a tour of the place, and whether you stop now or down the line, you get a good idea of what project's actually going on and type of work. So.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Good report. Anybody have questions?
Yeah, one. When you take the Grand Haven pump station offline and put it on redundancy pumps, are we going to have trouble with smell there?
No. The anticipation is that we won't. However, we will have new pumps going into a crock behind the building, so there will be some exposed sewer line, I guess you could say. We're going to take the the measures to make sure that's a safe place that nobody can just wander in. But if there is problems with smell, we have some measures we could take in order to minimize the effects of that.
Okay.
But we don't anticipate that it will be much worse than what we currently have there. Over the years, we've had some complaints, but pretty minimal. We're fairly quick to respond and, take care of any concerns anybody comes with. So.
Okay, before I know that we had problems there, and we corrected those problems, and the redundancy pumps, if they're going to be outside, I can imagine there's going to be some smell to that more than there is right now.
Yeah. There will be there's some smell there, but it's all it's all contained lines. So unless there was a major spill, which shouldn't happen, I don't anticipate too much of an odor going on.
Okay.
Very good.
Ryan, do you do the work at night when the flow is down theoretically, or is this just? You just
Ideally,
go
we try to make sure that if we're doing any major renovations that we are doing at low flow hours. And we've done that in the past. Whether it's 2 or 3 in the morning, flows tend to be a little bit low at those times at night when everybody's sleeping. But with a project like this, there's just things you can't avoid. Whether it's going to be the flows that you're concerned of, we certainly would be concerned with the rain event because those tend to up our flows as well, but infiltration. But yeah, those things you just can't avoid. Possible odors that might occur from construction as well. But we do our best to avoid any of those things.
Thanks.
I was spending a lot of time at the dog park lately, especially early in the morning, and it's been a huge improvement. Let me say this over, before all the work was done, and we covered the tanks out there. So
Yeah.
there's some detection out there, but it's, like I say, way improved over what it was before all the work was done. So
Yeah,
very much appreciate our.
Yeah, and the superintendents before me, they've certainly done a good job of addressing the issues as they come and correcting them, a lot like the odor control. I just talked to somebody the other day who said they used to walk and they used to be able to smell us from 3 blocks away, and now they have to be much closer than that. So that's a big improvement. Yeah.
And the ducks and the swans really like it over by you. So
Yes, yeah, they certainly do. Yeah.
yes, Pat.
What happened to the old force main that was in the river? Did we just fill it, or is it still under there? Did we pull it out?
The Spring Lake Force Main, we still have that there. And the last I heard is that we're going to keep it there. But there might be some measures we need to take as far as checking the integrity of the pipe, making sure it would still be useful. I think there's still some questions that we need to answer for the DEQ. But as a line of defense, in an event where we might have a mishap in this new force main, it certainly would be a nice backup to have. Because like with the mishaps we had before, we didn't have a backup. It was just correct the issue now and correct it fast. We needed it. So I think we're certainly exploring that, but I think, with the intention of keeping it in place where it is.
Yeah. And the other question on the budget side of things, are we looking in line with what we were intending, and what do those numbers look like? What?
Yeah, so with the budgets, with the projects, ultimately our overall budget for the plan, let me get my notes here real quick, was met, and so we didn't go over budget. So that's talking all the budgets together. However, for instance, the wastewater treatment plant and local pump station. As I mentioned, the wastewater treatment plant has the Headworks building, primary building, and activated sludge building, along with the local pump station. We budgeted just under 4.2 million, but the bid came in at 5.2 million. So, as you further investigate issues that you might be planning for to replace, other things may come up. And it's the decision of whether or not we do it now or do it later. And it just so happened that a lot of this was necessary in order to make the overall project successful in the long run. So a lot more things were kind of added on after the fact. But then you look at things like the Grand Haven Pump Station. We budgeted just under 1.2, and the bid came over just over $1 million. You know, so depending on what project you're looking at, you know, we have a budgeted number, and we might have gone over, but we might have gone under as well. But when you look at it as it was a 5-contract bond that went out for this, you know, we didn't exceed our budgeted amount, so.
And finally, the Ferrisburg lift stations, are those going on the same time as Adams, or are those going to be next?
You know, that's kind of, that's a project that we're kind of not necessarily a part of. I haven't gotten an update on that anytime recently, so I'm not sure where we are with those. You know, being an authority, we do serve all these communities, but our involvement with the collection system isn't there like the municipalities are, because they take care of those, we don't.
Okay.
Okay. And so with the Ferrisburg project, that's kind of in their hands.
So if overall you're on budget, but various parts are either above or below, does that change the city's proportion of the cost that we have to pay?
I don't believe so, no. You know, I think we have an outlook for as far as the budget goes, but with the commitment for the city, it's based on flows, so.
Well, the write-up says we pay 100% for the Adams Street work and
Yes,
52.53 of the headworks and
yep,
local lift, and so depending on which part was over and which part is under, it might make a difference on the city's chunk of that overall cost.
yeah. Which I would agree with you, that is true, but, you know, I guess as far as the city's obligation, how that pans out, I guess I'm not sure if you guys were affected, you know, one way or the other, because as I mentioned, we had that pretty big overage on the headworks building, which.
Well, and the project's not done yet either, so.
Yeah.
You never, until it's all done, you don't know for sure.
Not for sure, no.
I just want to, off here, I just want to tell you, thank you for stepping up and working hard as you did to come forward, Ryan. It's nice to have a local person. Growing up here, you know exactly what it is. You know the people here and everything. I'm going to get off the budget part of the money part of it. They've already handled all that. I just want to tell you thank you for stepping up and taking over at such a young age and hoping to be here for a long time. So,
Yeah, no, I'm grateful for the opportunity. You know, growing up in this community, I've always wanted to find a reason to stay here. So, you know, I've extended my gratitude to Pat and the board, that I'm very appreciative of this opportunity to serve this community in the capacity that I am able to. So,
very good.
Thanks.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And he's excellent at work sessions. He got it right to 7:29, so you'll be back.
Way to go.
He must have rehearsed.
Yeah.
All right, so we will end our work session and move into our Grand Haven City Council meeting, as it is 7:30 p.m. So once again, I'll ask Ashley to call the roll, please.
Bruger.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Manetza.
Here.
McCaleb.
Here. Also have the pleasure of doing the prayer this evening, so if you would stand with me and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance afterwards. Lord, we come to you this evening with a mixture of sadness and joy. To have such a beautiful weekend, a beautiful day, all the activities that we have around, around our community, on the water and in our city, but saddened by the loss of life, such a tragic loss of life that happened also this weekend. And we look at various aspects of things that have come into our community of challenges, and so Lord, we pray for the peace of our city. We lift up the family of the man who lost his life, that you would comfort them, surround them, and give them peace in their loss. And Lord, we just lift our city up to you. We just pray for the peace of our community, the safety of our safety officers, the public works folks, all the people that work for the city, that keep them in their job and keep them on task, and we just appreciate all the people that live their lives for the community, to be part of the city, to do their work diligently as as unto the Lord in all that they do. Fill our community with your peace and your love. Be with our meeting this evening as we deliberate and attend to issues that are before us. Let us deliberate and with due diligence and make wise decisions. And we give you, we pray for all these things in the name of our Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to move right into the approval of the consent and regular agendas. Are there any changes?
I have none, Your Honor.
All right, anything from up here? If not, we will ask for a motion to accept the agendas as presented.
So move.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. If there's no questions, then we will vote on the agendas.
Scott,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes.
Bruger,
Yes.
McCaleb.
Yes. This is a general business call of the audience. This is one of two opportunities for anyone to address council on something that you have on your mind. Step up to the microphone, tell us who you are and where you live.
Ken Bumgarner, I live at 14806 Parkwood Drive, Grand Haven Township. I work here in the city at the post office. In your last meeting 2 weeks ago, you guys discussed people being able to fence in their front yards. 3 days after you talked about that, we had a fellow carrier in Muskegon that was mauled by a pit bull while he was inside one of these fenced-in yards. It's a troublesome issue for us. Just would like you to take that in consideration when you allow these people to fence in their yards, that dogs do hide in the back of the house. When they hear us enter the yard, they come around the side of the house. It is very dangerous for us. We have to go to those houses every day, 6 days a week. And, it's our safety. So, thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Jeremy Swiftney with the Grand Haven Main Street DDA. I just wanted to announce that everybody this weekend had a great time at sidewalk sales, and I am on hand if there are any questions regarding the art walk discussion that is on the agenda tonight. I just wanted to make everybody aware. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Jeremy. Anyone else? All right, if not, we will move ahead with our consent agenda. So Ashley, if you'd like to read that.
This is to approve the special council meeting minutes of July 22nd, 2019, and regular meeting minutes of August 5th, 2019, and to approve the bills memo in the amount of $1,906,974.82.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions on either one of these items on the consent agenda? That's a large amount of money.
We're still passing through tax money.
All right,
We collect it, we hand it out. We don't
pass
get
it
to
out.
Don't get to keep a lot of it.
Right, we just get the administrative fee.
We get to touch it.
We just passed it through. I did have a question on the bills and the pruning of the tree at $1,250 on my street there with 3 hours of work they did. I just want to know, is it normal for us to spend that kind of money when we have our own crew that actually prunes trees? They did more than pruning. I just want to know, $1,250 is a lot of money to them to come over and prune a tree. I had that question on there I sent back. I'm on the committee there. I asked that question. I didn't get an answer back.
Yeah, we got that question, and it is very normal. It's regular, routine. We don't have crews that are experienced enough to do that kind of work over people's roofs and in tight areas like that. Having a professional firm complete was agreed on by our park supervisor and Dan Vivian, and the city's equipment is a lot larger and heavier than what that crew could bring in, so it would have really upset, would have rolled into people's front yards and broken up sidewalk and done a lot more damage if we would have tried to do it. So it's not unusual, and it's also staff's feeling that the fees are reasonable as far as the type of work that was done and what got accomplished.
I talked to the neighbor that wanted the tree. He's trimmed on it. He said 2 years ago or 3 years ago, the city crew himself came over and did it. It was just small limbs that were hanging on his roof, exactly what it was before. But they cut tree limbs that were actually out over the sidewalk that were quite big and quite tall. They weren't on roofs that they cut. My neighbor wanted to know why they did all that, when all he asked was for just to have them come off his roof. So I just questioned that, that's all. We've done it before ourselves.
I guess I could speak to my experience with JB Landscaping. I used them when I was working at Howmet. I used them in my house, and I found them to be a very good company, very experienced, and they've been fair with me. So I can't speak to this particular incident. I don't know anything about what was required or whether or not that was appropriate. I'm just saying that in the past I've had good luck with them, so, and I think they do work at the airport.
Oh, yes, I understand that. It's just that my neighbors were asking me,
Yeah, I get that. I don't know the situation there.
because we've had it done before.
And I will say also that the BLP was out trimming trees down my street. And I went out there and talked to them and watched them, and, because I was real concerned about how they were gonna trim the tree, and they did a good job. As good as you can expect when you're trying to clear them around power lines. I would like to have had more branches left, and we kinda compromised, but they did well. So, yeah, it can work well when you're using your own people too.
I think not to drive this into the ground, but I think that, you know, because my neighbor just had a tree trimmed. I didn't. I changed my mind on mine. I'm glad I did, because they really did a lot of trimming on this tree. I'm thinking I'm glad that wasn't my tree. But I'm just curious, and as whoever asked for the tree to be trimmed should be there to make sure that they only trim what is
They asked
wanted.
for.
So I guess the question is, whose responsibility is that to make sure that they don't get carried away? Because
They can.
if you're not there, telling them, because I have the same thing. I have wispy branches over my roof. I don't want my tree massacred, so.
I would say, just like I said last time, that if we hire a private contractor to do a job, we need some supervision of our own over it. We just can't let a private contractor go on his own without some kind of supervision.
That's in all aspects, because we had the same problem when we had asphalting. We didn't have a supervisor on the job, and we ended up having to tear it all up again, so. I agree with you 100%, Denny.
All right, well,
That's it. That's all I have to say on it.
all right, I think we're ready to vote.
Fritz,
Yes.
Manetza,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes?
McCaleb.
Yes. All right, new business, first item.
First item is to approve the terms of MDOT Aero Sponsored Grant 2019-0918 in the amount of $58,000 for design, rehabilitation of runway 927, including 3 connectors and removal of 1 connector, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents.
Is there a motion?
So moved?
And support.
It's been moved and seconded. Pat, you want to introduce this?
Well, this is just to get the big project design underway. This would be a major investment in 2020 to redo the entire main runway with those connectors that come over to the taxiway. And that's going to be an $800,000 or $900,000 project next year.
That's the 80-90, or the 90-10 split, right?
I believe it's 90 federal, 5% state, 5% local.
Okay, all right.
And you can see on the big screen what the rehab will replace there, that darkened area.
Is that the same split we get on the engineering cost?
Yes.
And we're being asked to fund the engineering cost up front and be reimbursed? Is that this one?
Nope, that was the one last time for some acquisition of a couple avigation easements.
Oh, okay. I thought that was this one.
They're on board with this and taking care of it. It's in this year's budget.
We don't have to upfront fund this one?
Right.
Okay, well, it's something that needs to be done and keep us in good shape.
And I always point this out, and if I was waiting to see if somebody else usually beats me to it, that you vote for this and it puts you in for 20 years.
Right.
You're agreeing to keep the airport open for 20 years whenever you accept this sort of money, and that's what you're being asked to do tonight.
This is the east-west runway,
Correct.
Yes, it
Used.
is.
the significant portion of the time. All right.
All right,
Yeah, I think we're in for more than 20 years if we don't do this. We might as well have a good runway.
that's right.
You got it.
All right, we're ready to vote? There's no other comments?
vote.
All right,
Bruger,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Manetza,
Yes.
McCaleb.
yes. Next item.
Next item is to approve the 2019 Main Street Art Walk event to be held September 17th through October 3rd in various locations and times throughout the city, and permit the consumption of alcohol outside the depot on September 17th for the opening ceremony and October 3rd for the closing ceremony.
Is there a motion?
So moved?
Support?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there somebody from Art Walk here to, oh, yes, Jeremy, I'm
Yes,
sorry,
Jeremy's
you just
here.
volunteered not too long ago. So,
Questions regarding
There you
the
go.
requests?
That was almost, yeah.
oh, go ahead, Debbie.
Okay, so the area that you are going to have alcohol in is going to be restricted area, is that right?
Yes, it is. It's pretty much the exact same setup that North Ottawa used during their 100-year anniversary. I believe there's a map that was submitted with it, but I'm not 100% sure if they had. No, it was given to Shar. But yeah, it's in the same area. It's roughly 32 long by about 12 wide. It'll be partitioned off. There will be no serving outside. It will only be served inside. And then people could just go outside if the weather so chooses to cooperate in October, which I don't necessarily have control over, so.
Okay, and stay in that restricted area?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I think that was what the,
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that,
Expansions are
if
for-
you remember when we had the art show down,
Yep.
and then we had the artists down there, we had this type of setup we see in front of us here. It'll be set up for an area for them that works very, very well. I was down there when they did that. It separates them from the public and that, and shows where the alcohol can be served, and it only goes out so far, Denny.
Okay,
That's how they had it set up, just kinda like this right in front of you.
all right.
so do you know, you don't have any, there's no major changes, so whatever,
No, that's the only change that we were really pushing outside of, obviously dates may have changed
Right.
since last year, but that was the only change that we were looking for.
any other questions or concerns? If not,
Just glad to see the event continuing.
pardon?
Glad to see the event continuing.
Yep, absolutely. Yes, Pat?
Being
Just want to
recognized.
point out, they're doing the garbage cart art, garbage cart
Cart,
art,
art,
yeah. Because the word art is in the word cart, you see.
Do we
and that's-
still have the one that Sean did that we can,
Oh,
that's
man.
probably from some past meeting, sorry.
I'll see if I can find that to put up. Sean Sturzer painted one already, but people are being encouraged, for this year's community art competition.
yes.
To paint a garbage cart. We got 50 of them donated by Republic Services. And for $50, you get one of these carts and you can paint it, decorate it, do it how you want, and then put it out. And then when you're done, you can use it as your recycle cart at home, as decorated, however you want to decorate it. So if anybody's interested, $50, you get in. We've got, as of today, we had about 30 left. We got 50 donated originally. So we've got 30 left, and we're hoping to get all 50 of them decorated, and then there'll be on the 21st, yeah, the
Family Art Day.
21st, they'll be at Family Art Day. They'll all be, I think they're calling it the garbage can beauty pageant.
Yep, we're gonna have the voting for that, as well as the smaller ones will be painted with the kids on that day as well.
You got those little small ones that you got, the kids
Oh,
will be
yeah.
painting those.
All right,
If you want to see one, then Buffalo Bob's window, he has his sitting in there. There was sitting there for a whole weekend. I watched it as I walked by, so.
Yeah, the plan is to keep that there until the art walk.
So if you want to see what the decorated one looks like, that'd be a good place to stop by and take a look at. Is Buffalo Bob's downtown.
awesome. No garbage can races, so.
I
not
just,
to-
Probably not safe to do that.
All right, I think we're ready to vote.
Scott,
Yes.
Fritz,
yes.
Manetza,
Yes.
Bruger,
Yes.
McCaleb.
Yes,
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
thank you, Jeremy. Next item.
Next item is to amend Chapter 40, Article 3, Section 40-327B2 of the zoning ordinance related to fence opacity regulations.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved?
Second?
Been moved and seconded. So this is zoning ordinance gives homeowners two options for fences in the front or corner front yard, 3-foot tall fence with 50% opacity, or a 4-foot tall fence with 35%. A skinny picket.
That's the current rule we're replacing.
Current one is 3.
The proposed one,
Sorry,
yeah, the proposed one would allow 4 foot at 50%.
Just
but
to
35%.
reiterate to Mr. Baumgartner, we already have okayed people to have fences in their front yards. And what we're doing is actually raising the fence height a little bit more for them, because some do have larger dogs and whatnot, and it's trying to protect a little more, I think. It works really good. Yeah, you're absolutely correct about, you don't know what's coming around the corner, but we've already had that ordinance for them to be, they could put a fence up if they wanted to. If you look around town, there are areas where they have them already.
Well, we've had 4-foot fences have been allowed for a long time. We're just changing the
3
opacity.
feet.
Right.
So they can be wider slats on a picket fence, is basically what we're saying. So the height don't change, the height doesn't have to change.
Oh, I thought you
But
were
it
going
can.
higher.
You,
I thought you were going to go to 4 foot.
4 foot's currently allowed at 35% opacity.
Mm-hmm.
3 foot's currently allowed at 50%. We're saying 4 foot at 50%, so 4-foot fence could have wider slats. That's the only difference.
Okay. Instead of being tighter, so you can actually see through it.
Yeah, I can see through a little less.
A little less.
But if you're trying to get out of that yard, you got a 4-foot fence to jump. I do stand corrected on one thing. Last week, or last meeting when we met, I stated that I thought chain link fences were allowed in front yards, and they are not. Only decorative fences are allowed. My friends on the planning commission corrected me that I had misread that. But decorative fences only are allowed in front yards, not chain link, so. So if the concern is getting out of the yard, this isn't any better. It's still a 4-foot fence. But if the concern is homeowners being able to buy standard stuff and put it in the front yards, it makes it a little bit easier.
Well, my concern would be if you have a fenced-in yard and you have a dog that's not friendly, don't let him have access to your mailbox. Yes, that's just like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I printed up a couple of, and maybe Ashley, you can put those up. I've given quite a bit of thought to this, and my comments last week were that I was or 2 weeks ago, was that I'd vote in favor of it, but with a little bit of reservation while I thought about it. And I really, the last zoning ordinance rewrite that we did a few years ago, do the other one actually, that I think is the best one with the Home Depot. No, the other, is there a second page? Sorry, there you go. Yeah, that'll help out. We had a big emphasis on being a front porch welcoming community and town. And for me, I just as soon build shorter fences and bigger front porches. And I don't believe that a 4-foot tall fence at the sidewalk is a welcoming, historically accurate size fence to have in a small town like Grand Haven. So with that in mind, I went to Home Depot and I just put up 3 series of fences there, and I wrote down what they are. And the front one is a 36-inch. And I ballparked the opacity on that, about 40%. Excuse me, that's probably 70%. I got that opposite, maybe 60%. And then the traditional picket fence, I was able to find one. These are all standard sizes, 36 standard size, 42-inch picket. And then the 48-inch tall one, that's the opposite. Again, it should be 70% opacity, which is probably what we have currently in our ordinance. And for me, I guess if I were to try to find some sort of a middle ground on it, a 42-inch picket fence, because that comes in a standard size, and I think that's more in keeping with kind of an old-fashioned, friendly neighborhood town like I'd like to see Grand Haven be, makes more sense to me than going all the way up to 48 inches. So I went down, go ahead and show the picture below there. These are in order, I think, from tallest to highest. So these are just around Grand Haven. That's a very attractive 48-inch tall. And again, at 30%, it's the inverse of that. It's about 70% opacity. So this is an approved fence 48 inches tall. It keeps the dogs in if needed, and it's pretty see-through, and there's a big hedge behind it, but it doesn't give the impression of kind of a wall that I believe that a 48-inch tall 50% opacity fence would be right at the sidewalk. Go ahead and go to the next picture there, or the next page, the top one. Just tried to get a comparison. This happens to be on a hill, so it works out pretty well, but at the left, that's about 42 inches tall, and it's pretty high already. And at the right, it's about 36 inches tall. The further right you get, the shorter it gets, and that's a 50-50. This is not in a front yard. This is in a side yard, even with the house. So if somebody wants to keep their dogs in, they can keep their dog in the backyard, and they can actually go, I think, all the way up to 6 feet. But as far as the front yard goes, I just like something shorter and more welcoming. If you go down to the next slide, the next picture there, this is probably, this one is, welcoming front porch, 32-inch tall white picket decorative fence, and I think it's there for a decorative purpose. When we talk about having a fence that has a use that's specific to keeping a dog in or keeping people out, I think that's a great place in the backyard. I think the front yard should say welcome. And there's other, means that people can keep dogs away from the front yard. If they only have a front yard, you can put an electric fence line on top of that picket. You don't even have to bury it, which I think is a pretty nifty way to go. But again, I'm in favor of shorter fences and bigger front porches. And I think going taller to 48 inches, a 4-foot tall fence right up to the sidewalk, it's just the opposite of the direction I'd like to see us go. So I brought the pictures in, hoping to sway a couple people in that direction. Thanks, that's all I got.
Anyone else? If not, we can vote.
Fritz,
Yes.
Manetza,
Yes.
Bruger,
No.
Scott,
Yes.
McCaleb,
Yes. And that is it. So a report by city council. Well, that's got to be a record.
7:53. That is
Done yet?
We're not done yet. Hold on, we're not done yet.
Oh, look at that.
He's gotta drag it out till 9.
So who wants to start?
Well, as Jeremy, well, he left now.
Yeah,
Anyways.
he just walked.
He just left anyways. Sidewalk sales was down there. It was interesting to see a lot of people down there, and also the art on the waterfront, all the events that were going on. What a great place to be this weekend come on, this is a vacation land and we live in it, so we're on vacation, I say, every day. So we get to see different things going on. And this weekend was part of that. It was just all kinds of events for everybody to do. But also I thought was really good was we had the dedication for that, rededication in that, and also noticing of the Army Corps of Engineers. And there was a nice event, just to recognize them for all they have done for us and how much money they have stuck in the city of Grand Haven, and we've been so blessed to have that here. The boardwalk, the pier, just a few little examples. We get the dredging and everything else that goes along with the Army Corps, so we got to say thank you to them. First most, I think every time we go, and it's really nice that when we go for the changing of the guard, that I'm glad to see that every one of us shows up down there as a council, and they have a place for just the city of Grand Haven. When we go down there, it's really nice is that you got the families up front of the changing, they got the Army Corps guys there in front of us, and we're the next ones in line, and everybody else sits behind us, and they recognize us every time. And I want to say thank you to them, and I want to say thank you to Ken Formsma for organizing all this. What a great job he did again, and I hope Dan is fine. We had a little incident where Dan overheated at the hot dog place, so everything went good, smooth. Mr. McGinnis and Mrs. McGinnis were down there, had a cakewalk. The kids, I tell you what, just seeing the looks on their faces, because I think every kid walked out with a cake. It was unbelievable, so it was really, really good. What a good time, what a good thing to do. And that's all I have to report.
All right. Anyone else?
I just got two items. One, I don't think I took an opportunity to compliment staff and thank Pat for this flyer. I don't know if Ashley came up with it or you did or whoever did, but whoever did, great job. Went out in our tax bill. That's kind of the depressing part of it, but the idea is that just information for our citizens on perpetual 3 mil levy that does not raise your taxes 1 penny, but starts to move us in a direction of paying cash for our infrastructure investments. And I think that's just great information to get out there and tell your neighbors, vote for that, please. It's about the future of Grand Haven right there, so that's exciting. The other thing I had was just a follow-up to an email that we received, Pat, and I thought maybe it'd be an opportunity to bring attention to it publicly regarding some kids using BMX-style bikes and jumping off of the waterfront stadium bleachers and so forth. And I guess public service announcement, that's not why Waterfront Stadium exists. And I don't know what you've been able to look at from a staff perspective. I'd hate to put a bunch of signs out there, and hope people would use common sense, but obviously that's not the case here. So I don't know if we can try some information and let people know, hey, that's not what we're interested in. And I think definitely if our public safety officers are able to enforce, some sort of preventative measures, at the very least, that'd be great for them to have the authority to tell kids, hey, you can go do that somewhere else. So I guess I'll turn that into a question. Maybe during city manager's report you can look at that one, but that's all. 2 items for me. Thanks.
Okay, I also went to the Corps of Engineers event. That was a great event. And it's good that as a city we can work with Corps and recognize them and have a mutual relationship. That's really important to us. And I think that as a city we go above and beyond to try to encourage that. Works in our favor, works in their favor. It just makes us welcoming to the agencies that help us with basic stuff that makes us a special city. Also went to the Art on the Riverfront. I always like to look. I don't buy much, but I like to look. There's a lot of really good, high-quality art that's on display there. This was a juried art show. I didn't stick around to see who won, but it was interesting to walk through and see that stuff. I did want to comment, the death of the skydiver is very unfortunate. These folks do something that's beautiful and graceful, and they love what they do. There's some inherent risk, and I guess once in a while this happens, so very unfortunate. We did get some complaints over Coast Guard Festival, and I've gotten I think we've all seen emails about noise from helicopters, noise from planes and such. To some degree, it's a little bit like when people live near a farm and they complain about the farm being a farm. Well, you have an airport that we're trying to encourage it to be a little busier, and we're trying to encourage it to do well financially, and one of the fruits of success is that it's a little noisier and a little busier, and so sorry for that, and we can maybe mitigate that somehow with traffic patterns and approaches and how high helicopters fly and where they go and such. I did talk to the people at the helicopter venue, and they said that they had varied their route and they're trying to fly over commercial areas, and I told them to try to keep it a little higher, and it's one of those things where they assumed I didn't know what I was talking about. But at any rate, we did make contact, but they had already heard it from Earl Bears, and they did know he knew what he was talking about. So that was good contact there. Went to the Planning Commission meeting last week and listened to had a public hearing on the new version of the Peerless Flats development, which there's a poster on the wall out in the lobby showing what that general arrangement looks like. And so they had their public hearing, and they thought it was a better plan, and they've kind of passed it along, but there's still a lot of moving parts to that plan, which I think are not all quite ready for us. I'm not sure when we're going to see it, but it'll be a big development, and there's accommodations that have to happen between the city and the developer and various other parties. They had a number of other cases. I always enjoy going to the Planning Commission meetings. They're very detailed, very thorough. Appreciate the work that they do, and it's not easy work, and their meetings are typically long because they do a very good job. So no criticism there. I very much appreciate what they do. And they are, as we asked them to do, continuing to work on rules governing where medical marijuana facilities may be located and how they may operate, and so they're going to set the stage for that so that if those businesses do choose to locate in Grand Haven, we have a well-established process, place, something that's going to work well for the community as well as for them. There again, we're not requiring people to come here, we're just trying to make it so that when they choose to, it's going to work for us. So they're still working on that. I did a ride-along with the police officers last weekend. I always enjoy doing the ride-along. Rode with just Officer Cannon for a time. It was always interesting. We ride till late in the night. We see a variety of things that go on in the community that you wouldn't see otherwise, and very enlightening sometimes.
Did he make you riding back with Max, or?
I did just briefly once. But there's a partition between me and Max now.
Oh,
You
okay.
don't sit with him in your lap now. There's a partition there. So that wasn't too bad. And then to kind of reach around to pet his nose. So that worked okay. Mostly I sit in the front. I try not to irritate the officer too much. So we did that. And then the only other thing I wanted to bring up, and I brought this up a few months ago, and I just wanted to bring it up again so it doesn't get forgotten, or I know we've been very busy, but I brought it up a few months ago. Continuation of Columbus Street is a two-way road from 5th Street up at least till 7th and possibly up as far as Beacon, where we're at with that, that thought process, what needs to be done, what cost might be incurred. I know there's still interest in with the Centertown folks, that they think that would be very helpful as far as business development, as far as the viability of the Centertown district. I'm very interested in hearing more about it, knowing the feasibility or lack thereof. I think it is feasible. We got to make sure we understand the details of what's required. And I'll Pat, you've been busy with a lot of things, but I would like that back on the radar.
Okay.
So, and that is all I've got.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, I also did was able to make it down Saturday for the celebration on the anniversary of the boardwalk. It's always good to say thanks for the Army Corps for all the work that they do. And Mike, I want to thank Ken Formas. He puts a lot of work into this recognition and making sure that the word gets out, and he does a great job, so we appreciate Ken. And we certainly appreciate the Army Corps. And I got my first parking ticket of my life going to that event. So thanks to officer number, I forget the number. Was it you?
It was Cannon, he did it.
First nights.
I was still living in the BLP lot, Coast Guard Festival parking configuration, which I guess is no longer valid. So what do? It's $25. My contribution to the finances of the city as soon as I get my check in. So I think I have 10 days. Am I right? I'm going to wait 10 days. So
Well said.
I also went to the planning commission meeting. Pardon?
5 minutes to 5.
5 to 5, that's right. I'll walk it right in. Also to go to the planning commission meeting, it is always interesting hearing the deliberations of planning and the questions that they have to face and answer, and it's a fascinating study in human nature. And also the airport. I believe in being a good neighbor. And I know that if you live next to the airport, in years past, it was a fairly quiet place. Although that has changed. And, but I don't, but I would like to see a conversation being held between the neighbors and because I'm hearing from more and more people that, the constant droning, hours on end. I think that can get irritating after a while. I see somebody in the audience is nodding their head. So I think this is a conversation that we can maybe, are there solutions? Are there alternatives? And I think we should be open to that we are good neighbors. So because we don't actually, the city doesn't have a whole lot to say about any of that. That's a subcontract thing, but the city gets the blame, and that's where my concern is. I don't, people think that the city is being a bad neighbor. It trickles down from there. So I think that's a good conversation to have. But a lot of fun things going on. Saw some amazing boats coming in the channel, but all that is tempered by the tragedy on Saturday and that family and some of the other rather strange incidents that have happened here in the past few weeks. And for that, I just appreciate our public safety folks and our first responders that they're always ready to answer those calls. And I'd say thank you very much. So with that, I will throw this over to Pat and the city manager's report. And I don't know if William, have you introduced yourself?
I've not.
Why don't you come up and tell us who you are? So William is new to our clerk's office, and he's with us today, just working the AV stuff and learning how all the buttons and dials work over there.
Thanks for the intro, Jerry.
Bet.
Yeah, I'm William Weideman. I work with Linda Browand in the clerk's office. I'm her new administrative assistant, and I believe this is my 4th week. My first day here at City Hall was the 16th of last month, so maybe you guys can do the math on that. Everything's still pretty new to me right now, but I'm definitely excited for the opportunity, and I'm also a graduate of Grand Haven High School, local, raised here, grew up here, so it's nice to give back in a way and just be more involved with the community. So,
all right. Well, welcome, and we're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
All right. So, Pat, city manager's report.
4 weeks in and Linda sends them to council. Ready? You go take care of that. Very quickly, I just wanted to show you the picture that Jerry asked for of the Sean Sturzer's cart. Pretty neat. So she got that painted up with some nice paints, and that just gives you an idea of the sort of thing that we have to look forward to this early this fall. We'll be able to enjoy those. Hopefully, I don't know if they'll all be that sweet. The one that I might work on won't look anything like that, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Speaking to Mr. Bruger's comment about the bikes, Jerry already asked that we put something on the next agenda to have city council vote on a measure. We've got a very useful section in our ordinance that says it shall be a civil infraction to violate any rules that are posted on signs by the city. So unfortunately, you do need to put up signs that say no bikes in stadium or no bikes on stage area. We're working on how to make that sound appropriately regulatory, and we'll place them discreetly enough where they're not a real eyesore, but that they're noticeable enough so we can enforce. We talked about it's too bad you just can't put up a big sign coming into town, please use your head. Don't do anything ridiculous and be able to write a ticket. But because, jumping up and we did have some damage to the steel on the side of the stadium on either side of the stage last year, and we had to have one of those panels replaced, and we're pretty sure that big chunk out of it came from one of those pegs on one of those BMX bikes. So we really don't want them up there, but, kids will be kids, I guess. But public safety, not able to enforce it unless we put up some kind of signage. So that hopefully answers your question. And that is all I have, Your Honor.
All righty. General business, call the audience. The second opportunity to address council on something that you all have on your mind. And so go right ahead. And if nobody does, we will adjourn our meeting. And we're, hey, this might be record time.
Record time.
All right. So we are adjourned.